Feels. Oh, right, yeah. Technical. Difficult.
I don't know.
Is Kyle gonna be here?
He did. Did he? Okay.
You say Carol was not coming?
Connie
Connie,
is not
Carol.
coming.
I see
know,
Carol, she's
Carol
sitting right
Connie
next to you.
Sorry.
Look to your right.
Carol, Cheryl, and Connie, there's too many C's.
I think he needs new glasses.
Shut up, Brad.
Those boots.
I know, they're fabulous.
I like her.
Oh, they're blue on the bottom.
Yeah, that's the, I guess, their
Betsy
trademark.
Johnson.
Yeah,
Betsy
Betsy Johnson. It's like, it's not quite Louboutin, but I'll take it.
Well, I have a pair if you need them because I don't wear heels anymore.
You have a Louboutin? Girl, how much do you want? What size foot do you have?
Well, they're European size, so you have to get them. European size one's slightly small.
Oh, okay.
So at the time they were either 6.5 or 7, I can't remember, something like that. And whatever the equivalency
Yeah.
is.
Stuff your foot into that.
Honestly, I probably would just do it anyway.
I got them when I got my MBA to wear on stage.
Cool. I didn't get a graduation because COVID twice.
Stinks.
So these are my substitutes.
I only did it because my dad wanted me to. So I'm like, because I was a grown woman with one kid at the time. I'm like, okay, I guess I will.
Yeah. Is Jeff on yet?
Yeah, I just looked at
I don't know if he was gonna come in or.
the analyst.
Yeah.
Have you heard from Kyle?
I thought he was coming. It's not like him to be late.
This was the day he had to be at the office.
Got his foot back too. We'll give him a few more minutes.
Have you heard from Kyle?
He replied, but I've not heard anything. It was pretty quick when he accepted it.
Okay.
But Jeff is online.
We'll give him 5 after.
Okay.
He shows up at 5.
Oh, he just connected. Kyle is online.
Hello.
You hear it, Kyle?
Yeah, I'm virtual here. So
Where are you?
Where are you at?
Sunny.
I'm
Wow.
I'm in Big Bend, Texas.
Oh, looks a lot warmer there.
Turn him off.
About 70. I'll go ahead and turn my video off.
Yeah.
Wow. Let us enjoy it.
He's making it up. It's one of those Zoom screens.
Oh, Zoom background.
Can you do
Making
that?
us jealous.
Can you do that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You can change your backgrounds.
That's
Yeah,
right.
up to anything you want.
Huh.
He'll be in
Okay.
outer space next.
Good evening, folks. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Welcome to the Town of Pendleton's January Planning Commission meeting. If I could have a roll call. Hannah, you better do it since we got you online.
What do you want me to do?
The roll call. I'll do it.
Say their name.
Oh.
We'll just start with Cheryl. Yeah.
Cheryl Rennie Hunt.
Brad Ballantyne.
Tim Pritchard.
Carol Hannah.
Jenny Sisson.
Kyle, can you chime in?
Yeah, Kyle Eichhorn here.
Okay, thank you. We do have a quorum. Connie's the only one absent. If I could have the board review the minutes from the December meeting, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the December meeting.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the minutes from the December meeting as submitted, please say aye.
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 Those opposed? Thank you. Okay. We have no old business starting the new year. So in new business, we have approval of a resolution to create a technical review committee.
Tim, the the only thing that the state statutes require us to do is elect a president, a vice president, and a secretary at our first meeting.
Okay?
Get that out of the way for signature's sake.
All right.
It would be appropriate to name or make a motion to nominate the same officers, but it's completely up to you guys, obviously.
I'll make a motion that we retain the current officers and the offices that they currently hold.
I will second that.
All right. Any other opinions or motions on that?
Or
Okay.
anyone that wants to decline.
Or wants to decline?
I'm okay.
Good. All right. Hearing none, all those in favor of retaining the officers for 22 as they were directed in 21, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. So officers will remain in their respective chairs. Okay. New business, approval of resolution to create technical review committee.
Jeff, what's our next steps on that?
We need to open up another meeting, Jeff, or?
Yeah, this was noticed as a public hearing, so we can suspend our public meeting and open a public hearing into this technical review committee resolution.
All right. Also suspend the current public planning commission meeting. Therefore, we'll open a public hearing on the technical review committee in front of us now. And Jeff, this is for the review of the UDO going forward, correct? Have a board?
Correct. Yeah, the UDO calls out a technical review committee, but it doesn't say who's on it. And that's by design. You want some flexibility, and this resolution has flexibility. And it was this was put together by Hannah and Kayla previously, and then KK, our consultant, helped provide with a suggestion. And this is, and the other technical review committees I've dealt with, this is very normal, a very normal group of people that you want on this. And one good thing, this technical review committee can meet informally. It's not bound by the open door law. And they're chosen by their expertise. So it's not a high pressure type job, but it's certainly very, very valuable to the town's planning department.
And we've been doing this with primary plats and all of that, just having it go through streets, electric, water. So this is just putting it in writing, essentially.
Everybody should have received a copy of that electronically, did you? Okay. Any questions or comments on this resolution?
What would be the reason to have a Madison County Health Department representative? Just
That's just as needed. If there was ever development that involved where they might need to be present, if there was like a hospital or something being developed.
okay.
Just
Yeah.
having someone on call to be like, hey, does this
Okay.
seem okay here?
I guess it could be for septic too, maybe.
All right. No further questions or comments? Kyle, do you have anything?
Nope. I think it's a good thing. A long time coming. I think it'll help moving forward. So it's a good
All right.
thing.
Okay. Anybody else? Brad?
No, I'm just trying to make sure that we haven't missed anyone. I'm sure that their due diligence has captured everyone, but I'm just trying to go through mentally and make sure that all the areas of expertise are covered.
Pretty broad group.
And you can add
Right, if there's
per
someone.
the need.
Yeah, per need, we can add someone, even just if it's for one project or one plat.
Which is great.
All right, hearing no questions or comments, I'll make a motion to approve PC 01005022-01 as drafted.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. All those in favor of the resolution as submitted, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Resolution carried. You give us just a minute to sign this, we'll.
You've got it.
Goes back on top, yep.
Okay.
All right. So Ms. Ham. Okay, with that done, we'll close the public hearing for the Technical Review Committee and go back to open the public meeting for the Planning Commission. Second item on the agenda tonight is the first quarterly review of the UDO, better known as the Unified Development Ordinance.
All right, so on the G drive is the Excel sheet in the quarterly review folder. And these are just some things that we listed when we were going over initial passage and amendments of the UDO that were earmarked to just review at our first quarterly review. It's only been since the middle of October since the UDO has been passed, so it's not been a whole lot of time, but it's probably just good to start first of the year, see if there's anything really standing out. So if you look at the first couple, solar and wind farm concerns, this was something that Connie wanted to make sure that I mentioned as well, to see if there was any new legislation or anyone had thought of any amendments to propose that we could possibly vote on in the next meeting or two. So this is all just kind of anything you guys would like to move with on this. There's a few things I've kind of added here and there just from the development meetings I have had since October. But mostly these first dozen or so are from the initial passage.
On the solar and commercial wind farms, have there been any new legislation passed that we need to be aware of that's flowed through your desk?
Not that I'm aware of, and I haven't heard anything from, I think her name was Mary, the attendee here, who kind of brought that to our attention. So no, I have not heard of any new legislation or seen anything come through.
It is anticipated that the legislature is again going to try to preempt local control on this. They tried it last year, and the leadership in at least one of the houses indicate they're going to take another shot at it.
Okay, good to know.
Yep.
So by preempting local control, Jeff, does that mean that state statutes would override any local decisions concerning?
They would, yes, sir, and they would. And the way to head that off would be to get a more restrictive ordinance in place prior to the effective date of any new legislation, which will probably be July 1st. It doesn't give us a lot of time. I know Madison County is currently in the process of drafting one that may end up being more restrictive than what the state will do, because and it depends on where you come down on this, but most people believe that the state's statutes will be fairly friendly to energy companies. And so if a municipality would like a more restrictive policy, they're probably going to need to get that in place sooner rather than later. And that will be a fairly involved process. There'll be significant public interest. You'll have to have public hearings. It'll have to go in front of you and the town council. So if that's something that we're considering, it's getting late already.
Jeff, do you know who sponsored that last year?
Sorry, I don't. I can do a little research, but I just read an article over the holidays that said they were going to take another shot at this.
Well, the session just opened yesterday, and I've had to go through a lot of the utilities, and I haven't seen it yet, but not everything's been posted.
Yeah,
I just wanted to look at it if it was.
yeah, and that it may not happen because I know that the local municipalities were very upset about it last year, counties, towns, and cities. So
I would recommend that we begin work to move forward with our own guidelines and tightening the restrictions. And that is based upon several factors. One is the town of Pendleton has a very limited geographic footprint. Two, we've already had concerns concerning environmental health and safety issues brought up by the public. Three, in some of the other discussions that we've been involved with over the last several years, there are notations in university studies concerning the impact of property values of wind farms. Some of the documentation provided talked about the impact of residential development, school enrollments in northern Madison County as a result of that wind farm. So I would like to see us move forward. I know that we had talked about getting the, I'll call it the influence range around the town, going out into the county and city of Anderson and potentially collaborating with them so that we did not have those types of facilities built right up against our residential areas.
I think, isn't the legislation for like a 2-mile, or is it a 4-mile radius, Jeff, to not have those in like town boundaries?
I think it was 2, but
We talked about 2 before. I was going to try to reach out to that, Jeff.
yeah, I don't recall exactly. I'm
Okay.
really guessing at this point.
Okay. All right.
So that is a 2 to 4, I'll call it a radius around the town of Pendleton that we would not allow it in. But have we taken the appropriate steps to avoid having commercial wind farms built within the boundaries of the town of Pendleton?
Right, yeah, we need to look at that because our UDO does have language about it. I'm not sure how restrictive it is.
And on,
It's not come up at all.
yeah, and
So, but if it does,
And I think with regards to the solar farms, we have enough solar farms going up that we can see what the impact is in the community, what the visual impact is, what the impact would be on additional residential development. And when we look at, you know, the core development plans for Pendleton, the residential component is key. And I don't think we want to discourage quality residential development because of commercial solar and or wind farm development that directly impacts people's decision to move here and the construction of their homes.
so what
I
I'll do
agree
is
that
I'll
the
look at, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, solar is probably the quickest moving one, I would say. They're popping
Yeah.
those up in every little corner of field they can find,
Yeah.
behind things, in and around things.
Yeah, they're a lot less dense
So with the
than
wind turbines, there's a lot more
wind.
land and bigger footprint there. Well,
Yeah, I can look into.
I'd
what
say that'd
some
be our
other
first
towns have
homework
done.
item for
Yeah.
Q2.
Yeah. And if you have any sort of, you know, amendments or guidelines or restrictions that you feel should go in place, that's what we can put into, you know, another round of amendments to the UDO. So,
I guess my basic
Yeah.
amendment would be now, if we need a starting point, is that we do not allow the development of commercial wind farms within the town boundaries. We work to enforce the 2 to 4 mile radius of suppression with the county and city of Anderson, and that we also remove the opportunity for commercial solar development from the boundaries of the town of Pendleton.
This is Kyle. So Jeff, you're talking about doing a town ordinance versus just a UDO amendment, right? There's a distinction there.
Well, the UDO is an ordinance, so it would have,
Okay.
you would amend your, yes, that's what I'm talking. You would effectively change your ordinance to tighten control of that as, and one way to do is what Brad just described.
Okay, I posted the code in the chat. It's 2 miles, the extraterritorial jurisdiction.
2 miles outside the city limits, Kyle?
Yeah, it's an additional 2 mile buffer outside your annexed area.
Alrighty. Anything else on the solar and wind?
I will email you just the press report that I saw. It's very basic, doesn't give much information, but it does say that, yeah, we're gonna try this again.
Okay, wonderful. If there's nothing else,
So real quick, do we want to come up with, I mean, I guess we're talking about going ahead and making UDO recommendations. Do we want to
yeah,
bring that back to the February meeting to get that? Because it sounds like we need, if we want it to change before July 1st, we need to do something sooner than later.
yeah, what we can do is, any of these, kind of things that we have ticked as the quarterly review, if you want to bring a amendment to the next meeting or two, you would have to kind of just propose it and let me know, and I'll put it in a spreadsheet like this, and then we'll just go through like we did the first round of amendments. So if this is one of them, I will put it on the next meeting's amendment list.
Is the Madison County, the new proposed one, available?
Yes, I can send that to you.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, if you wouldn't do that, that'd be great.
Okay.
Hannah, when you gather information, I'm not sure if our town being distinguished as a historic town helps in this. But if there's any research or other communities
Yeah.
that are similar, that would
That have
also
kind of dealt with this
yeah, that
too.
has set its have already set a precedence with some of that
Yeah, that
stuff.
would be good. Okay. Yep, I will look into that. Yeah, and if anyone comes across anything, just shoot me an email with any info or recommendations that you find, or Jeff, if anything else comes across your plate, just let me know. Okay, so moving on to lighting standards. This was just that dark sky lighting comment that someone had made. If anyone had thought of anything pertaining to this, I'm kind of just moving through these. If you see anything that pops out at you that you want to talk about, these were just what you guys had said you wanted to review. So I am open ears to make any recommendations or info that I've got. The only thing that I have added in here is really at the end, and I would say it probably starts, well, they're kind of all over the place, but the window coverage and allowing private education services in business districts. Those were two things that kind of have come to the table since October with some developers, so those are two things I added.
What was that again, please?
Which
The private
comments on here?
education.
So the 60% window coverage in general in heavy business, it seems a little high to have 60%. That was just, someone came to me with an addition and they were like, that's awfully high for that. So that was just kind of why I earmarked that one, if there was any suggestions.
So that's for the entire building? I'd have to look at the page again.
Yeah, I think it goes by face, like facade, each face, but just a 60% overall window. That is on page, oh, I put it on here, 58 of the UDO.
But that's just for the front, or the entry area, right?
I believe it's window coverage for the entirety.
The entirety of the facade, or the street-facing sides, or the entire building?
I believe it's whole building. If it's in the title of the table, it should say what it is. I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of
Well,
me. I
it
should have
just, it
grabbed it.
says, on street-facing ground level facades.
Okay. Street facing
And then
ground level.
15% on, well, no, they're looking at the,
So that's just for the street. It doesn't say the entirety of the building.
right.
Okay. That makes more sense then.
I don't think 60% for the street side is that unreasonable. to
Okay.
Make a modification now. I don't know what other people's thoughts are, but if that's for the classifications being discussed here.
Okay.
What kind of business, I mean, can you say what kind of business it was? I mean, was it,
It was a construction facility. So thank you, Denise. But again, this was just kind of something that came across, and I thought maybe put it on here because, we haven't had too many developers or anything come in using this new code yet because it's so late in the year and then it was the holidays. So
yeah. I'd say we just leave it on the list and see if it keeps.
if it crops
popping
up again.
Yeah.
Okay.
That'd be my
Because they could
suggestion.
always come across to the BZA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And on this same table, our MF2, which is the multifamily medium density, does not have any window requirements. I don't know if that's just inherent that there is windows because it's multifamily, but the other multifamily has a window requirement.
I would
so-
say that is an oversight then.
Okay.
I don't think you would have two different multiple multifamily definitions and have some of them with window requirements and then one without.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I just wondered if it should mirror MF1, where it's the two windows on each front or side primary structure. That doesn't seem unreasonable. But it's besides agriculture, which makes sense why there wouldn't be necessary
Yeah,
windows.
there aren't any.
But there's none on MF2.
Can we just treat that as a Scrivener error? I mean, that seems kind of just like a mistake more than anything.
I've checked the original table a few times and nothing's there, so I don't know where the error came in. But to me, I would think it would match MF1.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So Jeff, is that something we would have to just put on the next amendments list?
We could pass a resolution amending the UDO to reflect the Scrivener's error, to amend it to correct the Scrivener's error, I should say. I think that could be done by vote here today.
Oh, well, all right, cool. So what's the process for that?
You just need a motion to adopt it as a yet unwritten resolution to recognize the Scrivener's error, and you'll have to describe that, what it is, and to amend the ordinance to correct the Scrivener's error.
Okay. Got that?
You expect me to repeat that?
Can we say like he said?
Just a test?
What Jeff said.
Exactly.
I need a motion to accept the resolution to amend the UDO errors.
Do you need
Is that-
a second?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
in a
Did you
second.
make the motion, or you want the motion?
I'll make the motion if we
Okay.
get a second.
I'll second it.
Okay. I have a motion and a second to amend the UDO errors as we've commented on. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. I would think between now and February, we really need to focus on the solar and the wind.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know all these things, there are a lot of things that are gonna come up to be corrected. I think they're trivial.
Yeah.
I may not be the right word, but the solar and wind's gonna sneak up on us real quick.
Yeah.
Should we
No,
go
I-
ahead and get a public meeting scheduled for February? Does that make sense to do, to make the February Plan Commission meeting a public hearing about it? So we could go ahead and adopt some new requirements, or,
Doesn't hurt, and if it's not ready, you can always just bump it to the next month.
We have
Might
time
as
for
well-
that.
might as well notice.
We have time for that, Jeff, to get it out?
Yeah, you got plenty of time. You just need a 10-day notice, and that'll be you got a month.
All right.
So let's see. Another thing that I did want to bring up was the private educational uses in business districts. We had something come up of a private K through 12 that wanted to utilize an office park building, which is becoming a lot more popular, especially in the age of online. You don't really need as much space for kids every single day anymore. So I think that would be something to consider, is having private school education services being available, or like small education services be available in our business districts. We do already have the Acton Academy in our downtown business, and they function just fine. So this was kind of, instead of this person going through an entire conditional use, just to rent out a area in their office building, having it just a permitted use. So
Do we have any parameters around size as far as pupils that would be there from a safety standpoint?
Parking came to mind for me,
Yeah.
parking and
Yeah.
egress and.
right, yeah, and these are,
Living
you know, all
most safely.
things definitely to consider. It's just kind of wanted to plant that seed that might be something. And if they do have to go through conditional use, it would just be by each one. It would be case by case basis.
I'm just thinking from a liability, I mean, we have to
Mhm.
think of health, safety, and welfare.
Yeah,
I think.
And what's in the other, on the other businesses around it, and
And
how
I
much
think-
of it's virtual versus
Yeah.
in person? I mean, it seems like there's a lot of,
that would probably be where, if they're a private education service, they have to go through some sort of health board or service of that nature to even make sure that where they're moving into qualifies, and whether or not they need to do any construction within the building.
And I'm thinking of safety, if kids are walking there or being dropped off.
Right.
We wouldn't want accidents, so I think some of those things we would need to think
Yeah.
a little further about.
So, I mean, we can keep it as just, you know, conditional use. They come before the board, and if all of those things line up, then here's your variance. You can have a school.
I feel like that's the route to
Probably
go.
the best way to do it.
Because
Okay.
we could
too.
ask questions, each situation's gonna be different,
Mhm.
and different things we need to take into consideration.
Yeah. Oh, that's very good points. So where did I put that? Additional use. Okay. Let's see. Kyle, I think you had mentioned some HOA language for maintenance of common space. I know that was something kind of in our last row of amendments, to help landscape areas not to be neglected. Do you think that this is something we need to add, or have in like a definition section?
I mean, right now, does the UDO require HOAs? Major subdivisions?
That's a good question. I can look into that.
I think you bring up a good point, though. Someone has to be accountable over the long haul to maintain all of those public areas. And if you
Right.
have an HOA that has guidelines where the residents can close it down, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, after 5 or 10 years, and dissolve it, that'll leave a lot of public space potentially unmaintained, including the entryways, the facades, the greenways, the playground areas. So I think that there needs to be something in there to ensure in perpetuity appropriate maintenance.
Yeah.
1,000% agree. There's another municipality in the county that has a division that did not require an HOA, and that has been regretted ever since. So that would, even if it's not in there and we get one tomorrow, I would recommend we had that as a condition. But
Okay.
it'd be better to make it required. I just know what I've dealt with in this other place, and it's awful.
I'll double check and see if we have any language. And if we do, we might possibly just need to make it a little stronger. So that would just be an amendment for the next row along with wind and solar, things like that.
When
There's a bullet point under conservation subdivisions that require an HOA, so maybe we just need to duplicate that under the major subdivision
Okay.
heading, possibly.
when subdivisions are established, do we go through any of their bylaws to make sure that is that part of our check system? So,
It hasn't been in the past.
an example, we have Carrot Glen. It's the first one with one in a long time. So just that checklist, as far as, are they doing everything that they promised to do at the meetings?
Right.
And then part of that is the HOA, looking at the bylaws. Are we going through that at some point?
Jeff, are we allowed to dictate their bylaws?
The bylaws should be structured for what they have promised in
Agreed
meetings
to.
and agreed to.
Yes.
And for what UDOs, our UDO has in place. And I know this one's updated from when they were approved.
Yeah.
But if we have any, like the perpetuity language, then we want to make sure that it's in their bylaws.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're allowed to put reasonable conditions in there. So anything that just a reasonable relationship to the goals in the UDO, you're allowed to look into that and require that.
That, I
If-
imagine, would be something.
If we have an application that a developer is going to fill out, it could have a checklist in the front, and one of those things would be a draft set of the CCRs that they intend to record,
Yes.
so that can be reviewed by the TRC, and we
Right.
can have input on that for sure.
Should we ask for when their bylaws are adopted to have then the final version submitted here so we can have it on file? I feel
Yeah.
like we need an official set
I
of
agree.
records at the end, as well as some kind of checklist in-house that check, we
Yeah.
finally got it. Check, our inspector went out and, went through the whole list of everything that
No,
was
yeah.
supposed to
That's a good
occur.
idea, Jenny,
That
because
is a good
we
idea.
forced Carrot Glen to do about everything we could.
And I don't
And they
think.
agreed.
Yeah, they
We
agreed, but
just need to follow up to make sure that they did do it.
And
Because
I feel like
perfect
that
situation
didn't
is your
happen.
subdivision,
Yes.
they didn't do.
Oh, absolutely not. It wasn't structured correctly.
Well, they never
Out
won
of
the
the
homeowner
gate.
association, so it never followed up.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
I think a requirement before they record the secondary plat is that they would reference recorded CCRs on the face of the plat that the subdivision is subject to. So they would record those before they record the plat.
Yeah.
Those
So many
covenants.
times- So many times the developer says, we'll handle it, and
And then,
it just drifts away.
okay, I will, kind of take all that and put it into a proposed amendment and,
Another place you could do is when you're issuing building permits, you have a building permit checklist and recorded plat and recorded CCRs. You could check. And so you wouldn't issue any building permits until all that stuff's been recorded. That would be a checkpoint.
okay. That is all very good. Yep. 'cause we
It's
definitely wanna
really
make sure-
suggestions to keep things seamless
Yeah,
and
yeah.
doing what was,
Promise.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. The one right above that, path width, I think our UDO was in motion before the, street standards got passed, or vice versa. So one says 10-foot wide path, standard minimum, and then our UDO says 8. I think one might have been passed before the other and not updated. So do you have any thoughts on, these would be for like multi-use paths, not sidewalks, but paths?
I would recommend 10, so that you can have both vehicular and pedestrian traffic on it. So that if you have families, walkers, strollers, you still have that with space to handle oncoming traffic as well as bicyclists.
This would be for not any vehicular traffic paths.
Perhaps you still
These are
get some
like
maintenance
side
vehicles
paths.
down through there.
Oh, you mean, oh, okay.
You've got maintenance vehicles, you're gonna have your snow plow if you're gonna clear it for the pedestrians, the runners, the walkers.
Yeah.
And
I
by
see what you're
vehicular, it's not motorized necessarily, but bicycles and as well as pedestrian traffic.
Okay. That's something I'll put on the amendment to just update that from 8 to 10. I think it was probably just something like chicken or the egg. I don't know which one came first, but I agree. I think 10 foot is a adequate path size. Okay, so let's see. No real movement on any hobby farms, accessory structures, nothing like that. Okay, the ceiling top layer of new roads and asphalt, should we include language in the street standards that states asphalt has to be sealed before too many freeze-thaw cycles? We've had this issue at the falls with the cracking in the ground. So, just to kind of prevent that from ever happening. I mean, it's usually best practice, but you can't really ever count on anyone to utilize best practice. So if that's something you think we should add, that's just something I noticed from the falls and might not be very clear or present in our UDO.
I agree that
agree,
we
but-
should have it in there, but I'm just not sure how you define before too many freezes and thaws. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a very open, it's open interpretations. You can
Yeah.
probably get an engineer to state, that's three freezes and thaws, and
Yeah.
then someone else will say, well, a dozen or more is not
Yeah.
going to impact the long-term viability of the roadbed.
This is probably something I'll consult Resky on because he's been dealing with that issue quite a lot.
Was it the top coat out there at the falls, or was it subgrade stabilization that failed?
I think it was
Subgrade failed, Kyle. The other big
So
one-
like proof rolls weren't done and passed and everything. Does the town have an inspector that does that?
I think the stone was missing. The stone was never laid before the asphalt was placed.
I think as far as top coat of asphalt, it's probably just the town's preference, because the street can survive with just the second layer of asphalt and not the top coat. It's the preparation of the subgrade that causes it to fail.
Right. but you're
I'd leave it up to, I'd give Scott the discretion to decide that.
You're gonna have to have some patience because these subdivisions don't fill out within the first years. Therefore, they don't put the final top coat on until they're completely filled out, which could
Right.
take
2-3 years.
2,
Yeah.
3, 5 years. So you got to put some language in there that's sealed year after the top layer is put on, or
And that's what I've heard Rescue say is like a year, like 1 through 3 thaws. Typically, you want to put something on top at that point. I think the falls was probably just a unique case because it sat for quite a while, right?
yeah.
So, I'll talk with him about that, but I figured that would just be kind of some extra protection for the town and then obviously the residents living there. They've been dealing with a nightmare. Okay, so letters of credit. This was something Kayla had mentioned, that we have this as a type of surety. And she requested that we just use the other types, which are cash, bond, etc. And take out letters of credit, that they're kind of outdated, I guess.
I would agree.
Um,
And they don't hold up.
And that too.
Jeff, what's your opinion? Which ones have I'll call it the most teeth in there to be enforceable?
surety bond. You got some cash.
That's right.
Because I agree, I think a letter of credit is going to be difficult with bankruptcies and closing down entities to ever enforce.
Right. So that's something I'll add to the list. Let's see, single family. Another thing was the single family allowance in multifamily zones. That was something Kayla also brought up, if those would be, and this would be something probably far down the road. I don't expect to see a lot of multifamily districts come in and want 5 single family houses. But we don't have any sort of language in the new UDO that says whether or not those single family would be parceled out and still just be zoned multifamily, or if they'd just be the part of a typical multifamily, which is one parcel. So, food for thought, if you have any sort of, again, I just kind of want to plant the seed in some of these things, and then you can.
Let's leave it on there until we get through the wind and solar.
Okay. Let's see. And then kind of the last ones are just like, are these working, on the from subdivision types, development standards table for residential and conservation subdivision to the very end. These are just kind of some things I noticed. There's not really an incentive for a conservation subdivision. I put some literature in that quarterly review file that just goes over exactly what a conservation subdivision is going for, and there's some really good graphics in there. But we don't exactly have any incentives to make one of those, because if you look at our smallest, and this is just kind of how I saw it, anyone can just please jump in, but if you look at it, our smallest is 7,200 square feet, right? That's SF4. And the smallest you can go in a conservation subdivision is 7,000 square feet. So there's kind of some just wondering where we're at with that, or if there's no density incentives. Kind of what I noticed. So. If you have any thoughts or anything on that, please feel free. And then kind of the same thread as that, in SF4 we have the square feet for two family, and single family, one family is 7,200, and the SF3 two family is 6,000. So I was just kind of noticing, like, if SF4 is supposed to be the smaller kind of district, why the two family does not have a smaller square foot per unit requirement. Same for residential core conservancy. And then the very last thing, kind of on this end part, is the perimeter buffers. So Kyle, you added a really great kind of table of buffer by road type. We had buffer by use, but we did not have road type, so I added that table into the UDO. So that's 312 and 314. So I haven't gone through completely, but we have by buffer type, but now that we have two different types, we probably should distinguish where anywhere in the language where it just says buffer type, to make sure we put in road or use or both, something along those lines. But other than that,
You're talking about just adding a paragraph of language within the body to reference those tables.
you broke up quite a bit, Kyle. What did you say?
Can you hear me? My internet connection is failing.
Oh, yeah, I can now.
You're just talking about adding a paragraph in there that references those two tables and how they apply.
Yeah, because it's not really super clear, because before we just had the one, and it was just like basic buffer type.
Okay.
But now that we have two, I think we should probably make sure that it is known there's a distinction and where to place those, so someone doesn't try to put a light buffer on a road when it's supposed to be like a road type heavy buffer. So just, adding some language on that just so it's very clear what buffer goes where. So for the next meeting, I will put together a list of these amendments that we've kind of discussed, and then you can propose them and debate or vote on them however you see fit, and I will update the UDO. I will go ahead and put in that MF2 window requirement that we voted on this evening. But other than that, I don't have anything else. Has anyone thought of anything else that they want to review within the UDO, or heard anything, or any developments?
I didn't hear the comment about the historic overlay district.
That was a Kayla, thing that she put on there, so I'm gonna have to confirm what she meant by that. I think there was, in the old zoning code, since there was, historic residential,
Right.
and there was also an overlay of the, maybe National Register of some sort that had like where the contributing buildings were.
Right.
There was a lot of confusion, but now that we don't have that district called that anymore, I think it probably clears it up, but I'll shoot her an email and see if that's something that
I
she
thought
still
we-
had issues
I
with.
thought we were back to the point that we were recognizing the National Historic Registered boundaries that were established for the community as the definition of the historic district.
That I do not know. This was,
This is
something.
going back
Yeah,
Here.
number of meetings ago,
mhm,
because there was a map presented that did not match. It constricted the historic district and did not match that was defined on the National Register.
okay,
And it had cut away a lot of the historic and or contributing structures.
okay,
And I thought that that had been expanded based upon the placement of the historic district signage around the community on the street signs, but if it hasn't been,
okay.
we should align that.
I think I know what signage you're talking about. Okay,
The
I'll,
historic district on top of the signposts that define that you are
the
within.
brown plates that say historic district.
These are the ones that are on the street
Right, I
signs.
don't think they're
Oh,
brown.
okay, then I'm
I
thinking
think
of
they're
something.
black,
I'm thinking of
maybe
something
black and
different.
white.
They're on the street signs, not the ones that are mounted on the buildings, it's the,
Okay,
on the street signs
Mhm.
themselves.
yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. But yeah, I'll shoot Kayla an email about that, and she can give me some clarity on what her thoughts were on that one.
Hannah, yesterday started the legislative session. It's a short session right now.
Okay.
Some things, again, it all depends on what comes out. We know a lot goes in, but
Yeah.
you know, we all know how the sausage is made. Some Senate bills to have on your list.
Okay.
Senate Bill 139, authorized by Senator Blake Doriot, deals with manufactured housing, prohibiting some restrictions on that, even if regulations were already adopted. And again, things get modified, things fizzle out.
Right.
Another one, House Bill 1036. I didn't put in my notes who authored that, but it would be on the page. They're all on one page.
Okay.
It is the establishment of a watershed commissions by counties, which clearly we have watershed that runs right through our entire town. So
And
I
you
haven't
said
read.
that's by county?
Yes, a county could establish that, and then counties can merge together. And
Okay.
again, I haven't read all of these bills in their entirety, just enough to know if they touch base with any committees I'm on. I've been busy reading utility bills. House Bill 1110. This is allowing annexation of non-contiguous within 3 miles of a city. That's a third class, that's us. 100+ residential subdivision with commercial buildings with an HOA that is already using city's sewer or water. I just made quick notes of that could impact Plan Commission.
Okay.
If it goes through, and again, these are just things to have on the radar. And that's
Okay.
all I've picked up
Yeah.
on so far. But it just
No, those are
opened
great.
up things. There's a lot of placeholders right now, so things haven't been fully completed and posted. So
Okay. Yep, I will take a look into that. Is there a certain just website that's posted on?
there is,
Okay.
and
I'm sure I could Google it.
it's on my favorite. So it's not my favorite, but it's on my favorite. But yeah, it'll pop up.
Okay, just Google.
Yep. So it'll have one page on one side. It'll have what the House is sponsoring, the other page what the Senate, and
Okay.
Senate's sponsoring. And there's usually a descriptor enough that you'll know if it is something you have interest in or affects you. And then if you click on it, it'll give you a brief summary.
Okay.
Who's sponsoring the bill, and then there's something you can click on to get the full bill.
Okay, yeah.
If you have questions, you can just shoot me a message.
Okay, I will, for sure. That's good information to have. When do those typically, like, how long does that take? Just as
Well,
long
we're
as
in a
litigation takes?
Well, we're in a short session, so things are
Oh.
rapid fire. I always forget when the short session ends, but it's not a long session. So
Okay.
a matter of, is it in March or April? May? I always forget.
But somewhere around there
Yeah.
is when those might go into place. Okay, I'll take a look into those for sure. Anything else from anyone? Kyle, do you have anything, or Jeff?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. Any comments from the public?
You folks have waited patiently. Have any comments or questions? Or?
No, we just wanted to see where all the sausage was made.
We don't know how, but we know it's here.
That's right.
I would like to ask Jeff this, do I need to stand up?
Please.
So I had this happen to me a while back. If a private school or a public school goes within 500 feet of a liquor establishment, it would prohibit that development from happening. So I just wonder if that's still a statute, a state statute, that a school cannot be within 500 feet of a place that sells alcohol.
I don't know. I'll find out.
Yeah, definitely good.
That's usually the other way around. Usually the liquor store comes in, wants to build next to the school,
Yeah.
and they say no.
Where the teachers.
Usually the school, usually the school knows where they're going.
Where they sell vape.
Yeah, vape.
Yeah.
That's the other problem now,
Yeah.
the vape and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Edward?
Quick question for everybody here this evening. Oh, pardon me. Hello, Edward Valenti, Decker Lawyer Maynard. We saw an article in the Herald Bulletin, Monday's Herald Bulletin, front page article talking about Anderson seeking funding for the proposed 67th Street extension and details on that. We wanted to know what details this body might have gleaned about that. It seems to be that there has been more movement, but there have not been any public hearings on this topic since, I believe, October of 2018. So we are curious to know what this body or the town of Pendleton has heard regarding these extensions of the road.
I don't know of any. First and foremost, I'm not sure they know exactly where it's gonna go yet. As far as coming through Nestle, or I think now it's moved north one street. It goes between the cemetery and the DRA buildings.
Yes, that's what it looked like, 400 South on Lake.
Right, it's moved north one road.
Yeah.
So before they know exactly where it's gonna go, I don't know what our involvement's gonna be, but they're just trying to get money.
Yeah.
And I think they're taking the initial steps to get their part of it going with their money in Anderson and get it coming towards us. When that happens, we'll have to take our steps to do our part. And
Right, because it says they think about 1.2 miles, or in Pendleton, the road's about a 5K, 3.2 miles.
Yeah.
So, new route for the cross-country team. So, well, I appreciate you sharing what you guys know.
Yeah.
We certainly, given the
we're on
effect-
top of it. It's just no one's really done anything because no one really knows where the road's gonna go yet. It's hard to ask for funding when you don't know how big or where it's gonna go yet.
So, yeah, it says here in the article they want 4 lanes with 10-foot wide bike paths on either side. So they certainly have a design scheme in mind.
Yeah,
And I know my clients on the north side of 38 are
right.
keenly impacted and aware and are seeking what
It'll be
knowledge
a
of this road.
major artery if and when it does happen. We
Right,
hope it
so
does.
They'd very much like any information that you have when you have it, and open dialogue with the landowners and
Sure.
the government here as to what's going on.
We'll just watch the agendas. If we know of anything, it'll be on the agenda.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Edward.
Thanks.
Hannah, I would like to add to the last guest comments. When you look into any ordinance or Indiana code on schools within or in the district that are near alcohol sales, because schools definitions have changed with some of these, I'll call them like boutique offset type of schools.
Yeah.
If there's any definition regarding what constitutes a school, some of these small gatherings, because I think that would also come into play,
A lot of them are called academies.
Yeah.
Well, actually, sorry.
and how they file their
This
taxes
came up
or what.
With the charter school that I was developing
Yeah.
on the south side of Indianapolis. So that, and did you also know that the state statute prohibits a school from being within 500 feet of train tracks?
We might have a problem there at high school.
Yes.
anywhere in Pendleton
Came up
for
in
that
my
matter.
research.
Yeah.
It was painful.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the state's already saying the marijuana words. That's back on. It's got a lot of steam behind it.
Yes, it is.
Oh, for the state?
Legalization.
We have
Yes.
for the town already, but.
The state has that on as proposed legislation in this session.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
agree. I think we should look at the criteria and if we have any opportunity to recommend what constitutes the type of schools we want to look for or
Yeah,
not.
I'll definitely kind of look into what is the like official definition of school and,
I guess the question would be, there are two things. You have off-site sales sites for a liquor store, and you also have establishments that have liquor licenses. So we need to look at both of those, because I'm assuming that most restaurants that are developing in or around Pendleton, either the new construction or taking over existing facilities, are gonna want liquor licenses. And if it's liquor licenses or beer wine licenses, if those constitute the sale of alcohol, how does that impact the location next to a school?
Because
Because
gas
Acton
stations.
Academy is within 500 feet of probably 3 liquor licenses.
right, yeah. And that, I mean, that's kind of where I
But they can't sell
was
carryout.
thinking about that, yeah.
And just a couple years ago, that changed with, sorry, I'm losing my voice, with gas stations, correct? As far as what they could carry?
They can carry warm, not cold.
Okay, because I knew a couple years ago there was legislation out
Yeah.
there. And then the school, that might be antiquated language, and so then there's unintended consequences that things don't work hand in glove, so,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just kind of
So
a
you're-
lot
Train
to.
tracks language was, I think, from 1929, and it is antiquated.
Yeah. And to your point, that's what we can do, and it'll go the other way. Someone will want to open a liquor store, a vape shop, or marijuana shop,
Yep.
and that's what they have to come before us, and we can put the stop to it before it gets too close to the school or an undesirable location or at all. I think there's already verbiage within the town prohibiting the sale of marijuana.
Yeah, there's a cannabis ordinance
Yeah.
that I think Judge wrote back in 18, 19? It was, I mean, it was a little while ago, but it's already,
Yep.
yeah, in place. I did want to question it, this, private kind of educational services in business districts, currently, it's not allowed at all. So I think maybe if we put, instead of like permitting uses, conditional use only, where it would have to be case by case, than just allowing it at all.
On which one now?
Oh, sorry, that was back up to, private education
Oh.
uses in business districts.
Yeah.
Having that as, instead of a permitted use, allowed to be asked for as a conditional use.
Yeah.
So,
I guess, my concern was, if you had a school move into an office building to adaptively reuse that space, the school is there, and then the town has an opportunity to attract, say, a microbrewery that would then in turn sell packaged liquor. The ordinance would prohibit that microbrewery from being able to even consider the town, or at least a space in the nearby downtown area. So, I mean, then when you think office buildings are generally in more of a denser area, they're not usually outlined, although there might be here, but
yeah.
I just wanted you all to think about that. Because when you say conditional, you were thinking we don't want liquor stores and vape shops to move next to a school, but if we have a school in place already, then we might not be able to attract something that could really be an economic driver for the town.
And I think that would be when the school would come before us for a conditional use, we would look at all of those factors, like, well, we have a really nice building next door that could possibly be a big economic driver. We won't allow you to put your school here because of that reason.
There,
So,
all right,
conditional use is every time a school would, or education service would want to go into a business zone, which is GB, HB, and NB, they'd have to come before us and ask, essentially, to be allowed to do that.
Okay, fair.
Anything that comes in has to come before us, which is very protective for you folks.
Yeah, but I mean, there are circumstances like, actually just kind of completely, there's an offset building out there that's just kind of standalone. It's got a bunch of ag fields around it, and it's an office suite building. It's probably, I don't know how many units are in it, but I know there's already I think a health kind of network in it. So, like something like that, there's tons of parking. So something like that would probably be like, okay, do you have an education service in? But, because there's just nothing around it.
Thanks for coming.
I tell you, I would like as much information as possible as to the
Yeah.
limitations that would
Yeah.
go on for off-site package sale, traditional liquor licenses, et cetera, if they establish perimeters that can't be breached around educational facilities or other facilities.
Yeah,
Just so that we understand when we're taking into consideration the request, what the implications are.
right. Yeah. So, I mean, if it were to come up as an amendment, it would just be to allow a conditional use of an education service in a business district. Obviously, like large public schools, institutional only, they have their own set of parameters with things like that. But just something moving forward with how much like kind of those boutique academy things are popping up and being adaptable to that. And it gives people choice in education. So, that's all I've got.
Anybody else, questions or comments? Kyle, you have anything?
He's gone.
Nope, good to go.
Enjoy your time in Texas.
Thanks. See you guys later.
Thank you,
Bye,
Jeff.
Kyle.
Thanks, Jeff, for attending.
Thanks, Jeff.
Meeting adjourned.
This is why I always have my water.
Oh, I know. I'm just like, I'm constantly with